This is George Dionne of the Rock is George podcast, and this is a KNAC.com exclusive interview with vocalist Lenny Bruce of the German hard rock act Dust Bolt. If I knew absolutely nothing about Dust Bolt, how would you describe the band's music to me?
You know, for me, it's like a really, really intense and heavy and fast and energetic rock and roll band. That's how I feel about the band. You know, people like the term thrash metal to describe us, but I think the new album proves that there's more to the band than just being a thrash metal band, and that's why I choose the term rock and roll band, because we know we want to do this for a long time, and so this is kind of like we're still in the early steps of a lot of things to come.
Well, that new album you speak of is Sound and Fury. It's your fifth studio album. It comes out on February 23rd through AFM Records. This is sort of your lockdown pandemic album. That's when most of it was composed, correct?
You know, it's weird to be one of those people who say like, yeah, we got this, typical lockdown album, but it is like that. It was special circumstances, different, like completely different feeling to record an album for us than on all previous records before, and so we knew this will be somehow special, and it definitely will, kick open new doors for us. We are excited to see where things will go in the future. If it goes a little bit more back to the thrashy, faster stuff, or if it's a mixture, or if it goes more into hard rock. We don't know, and that's a cool feeling to be excited to see where the band is gonna go.
You were kind of learning as you go as far as putting this album together. You didn't have a record label at the time. You didn't have a professional studio or anything like that, but you were kind of putting things together, learning how to produce, doing the recording yourself, doing the writing yourself, correct?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, we always had this kind of like do-it-yourself attitude, because there was just no other chance. We never had like budget or money or stuff. All we had was us and some and friends who helped us, supported us. So we tried to make things work. So that's how we always approached things. And same story for that album. We were like, it was pandemic. We had one of the founding members. He left 2020 because he didn't, he wasn't ready to like spend his life choosing the rock and roll band path, which was absolutely okay. But we didn't have a label, we didn't have a management, we didn't have a booking agency, nothing, zero money, lockdown. So I was like, I'll go to the studio, spend my energy there, see what I can do, see what I can learn, and maybe I can do the record by myself somehow.
You mentioned a couple times kind of getting a little bit away from thrash. You're known as thrash metal in most circles, and you kind of thought that label was a bit restricting while you were putting together Sound and Fury.
Yeah, even before, and not restricting because we don't like it anymore or something, and not at all. We still love it the same intensity, the same way we did before. But there's other stuff we love too, and other stuff that we do naturally if we come together. If Nico and me, if our drummer and me, if we meet in the rehearsal room, if we come together, we just start jamming. Whatever, it could be a blues rock song, it could be some fuzzy garage sound, whatever comes out. We just love to jam music together. And so at some point for us was like, why don't we just take some of those cool, beautiful stuff and put it into Dust Bowl? We play it anyway together. It would obviously make so much sense. So we were just like, if the only thing that holds us back doing this is like this term and this expectation is that people have of being thrash metal, then it's just, we're a rock band, we can do what we want. And it's still thrashy as hell. So I still feel like this is a thrash metal album somehow. It's not like the typical thrash metal album. It's not like one that was made in '83, but maybe there's a thrash metal album in 2024. You can see it like that as well.
In keeping with the do-it-yourself nature of putting this album together, as far as recording and getting it all together to sell to a label, you had your guitarist grandmother chip in some money so you guys could get started.
Oh yeah, that was the first step for the drum recording. Yeah, that was necessary. Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad she did that. It was really cool from her. Yeah. Yeah, you can you gotta do what you gotta do somehow. And we didn't that was the easiest way because we didn't have any money and we were like, we gotta get started, because at some point you can spend your time worrying and being like, oh, where do we get money from? And and what's gonna happen and stuff. Or you're just like, okay, we don't even think about it. Borrow some money, record the drums, and then we gotta finish and do this album, and it's gotta work out, somehow.
Well, it sounds like it paid off in the end. Sound and Fury is a great album in my opinion. I wanted to talk a little bit about the songs that you have released ahead of the album. What was your lyrical inspiration behind the song "Eyewitness"?
For me, the thing was, I ask myself, why do I sing or scream aggressively? Like in general, there must be something that makes you really mad. There must be an emotion that pisses you off. And at some point, I realized that this emotion, it does not have to be, it doesn't have to make too much sense. Like, you know, when you feel something and it makes you aggressive, you're like so angry that you like lose somehow the control of the intensity of the feeling. And I thought this is perfect to make a song. And it was at that time when so many wars started, when Russia invaded Ukraine and everything, and the whole pandemic situation, lockdown was really weird. And you were sitting at home feeling like, shit, I can watch like everything is getting worse and getting heavier and getting like, more disgusting. And I just had this feeling of, fuck this. I witnessed so many things and they make me so mad in this moment. I gotta write a thrash song about it and just spit it out. Whatever comes out there. That was kind of like the idea for Eyewitness.
How about the idea behind New Flame?
It wasn't supposed to be on the album actually. It was a riff that I just made for it was a I was bored. I was in the studio and I recorded this riff and I thought it's really silly actually. And our engineer and co-producer, he came and he was like, "This is a really cool riff. You should do a song." And I was like, "Okay, but if we do another song, then let's do it right now." And then we just recorded and did it in 2 days. Called the drummers, like, "You got a song to play. We do one more." And so I used that song to, I saw coming that there will be a lot of people um being doing hate comments and stuff like that about the new stuff because it's different than the first stuff. And I get it. It's not easy if a band changes. It's always hard. It's always a little, and I know that we we take a lot from the people if you're a Dust Bowl fan and suddenly this happens, it's like, what the hell? Um but so New Flame was kind of like the approach to tell people we're still thrashers, we're still, we still love what we do, but we're all of us know that we gotta move on and get some things going for metal music because we need the kids, the next generations to get metal fans, to keep the flame alive. And we feel like there's so many like, of that classic band still playing, which is cool. But here we miss a little bit the scene of the young bands coming out and being supported. And it's always creator testament and like destruction. And the thing that I miss is like three young bands playing as local support act on that show. So you guys already, everybody knows you. It's all good, but give the, you have to give the whole thing to the next generation at some point. I feel like this, needs to be done more. So we were like, we're gonna burn that new flame. We're gonna be that new flame.
You have another song out called Burning Pieces. I saw an interesting story on your social media about trying to put the music video together to this, that you guys kind of had to scale this mountain, and in the end, you didn't even get the shot that you wanted.
Yeah, that was horrible. Yeah, we did 3 videos on 3 days or in 4 days, and this was the last one. And we wanted to go up on the mountains and have the sunrise. And so it was raining the whole day and the whole night, so we didn't have any sunrise, but we still went up on the mountain at 4 a.m. in the morning, the whole gear, and it looked stupid up there. It was like, what are we doing here? This is like doesn't make any sense. And somehow the material it looked like that. And then I gave it to a friend, and I was like, dude, I know you're digital, you can do video effects and stuff like that. So please just go crazy and please just make the forest disappear because we look stupid in there. Um, it was a good try. It was a nice idea, but it didn't work out, so we uh had to live with it and do something else out of the footage.
It looked so much better when George Lynch was doing it and Doc and out in the middle of a mountain just playing guitar, right?
Yeah, we were kind of like looking for that, but it wasn't the right mountain, it wasn't the right weather, it just didn't work that day. It shouldn't be. So it was okay. Let's keep that idea for maybe the next album. We're gonna make it to a real beautiful mountain. Let's see.
Another single you have out is Disco Annection. That
Yeah.
has sort of a cinematic music video that's described as a romantic comedy of sorts that takes a deep dive into the nightlife in Munich. That was the concept of the video your idea or the director's?
It happened. It happened. The funny thing is the guy who directed it, he's my neighbor, and we just had a few beers at some point, and I was like, I was getting tired of making music videos because it takes a lot of energy and time, and I found out, making music is more beautiful to me. But and so he was like, "Hey, we can make a video, but and I'll write something down, but it's gonna be really trashy, it's gonna be real stupid." I was like, "All right, go for it." And so he had his crew, his film crew. They were film like movie students. They're students, and so they were like kind of making this thing up, and we just invited our friends, and we played a little gig there, and then we had this little cinematic movie. It was really funny, and the idea was to show people because what many people don't know is in Munich, in our hometown, everybody recorded the albums there. Freddie Mercury, Queen, Scorpions, Ronnie James Dio, Rainbow, they all have been in Munich recording, and they were famous for going into the gay club scene in Munich, and the Freddie Mercury and everybody loved it. So this was a music was such a big rock music was such a big thing in Munich, and many people don't know.
You're certainly not the first band to kind of go outside the genre that you're known for. It's happened with many of bands. And you mentioned earlier when we were talking about New Flame that, you
Yeah.
expected a little backlash. Have you been getting backlash from the thrash metal gatekeepers?
I mean, it depends on what you expect. I don't expect to be liked by everybody, because that's not the point of a rock and roll band to be liked by everybody. So you always have that risk when you do something that's a little bit different, a little bit edgy. But we're so convinced that people like bands, some bands need to do that. There's some bands who don't change at all, and they're really good at not changing. That's also something, it's also a really tough thing to do, to release like 12 good albums that sound the same, but every album's good, like Motorhead. Every record's just great, but some bands need to try out stuff and see to crash, open some boundaries, open some new ideas. And we feel like we got to do this, and we also got so much support for like this kind of idea that we have. So we stick with the positive side of things, let's say like that. I don't read the like negative hate comments. It doesn't make any sense. You always, some people are frustrated. It's really fine, but it's a waste of time for me to think too much about that.
You mentioned earlier your former bass player had decided to leave. You brought in new bassist Tom Liebing. How did you discover him and recruit him for the band?
He's an old friend. He has been a friend for like with the band for 10 years or something. And as like the other three guys, Nico, Flo, and me, we're in this band together since we're 13 years old. So we have our own kind of way spent like, there's our own dynamic between the three of us. So we wanted to find somebody who knows us and knows how we are, and it's not like completely new to this chaotic circus. So it was cool to have a really, really, really close friend as the new bass player, and it worked out. Yeah, it's cool.
How did you end up signing the deal with AFM Records?
We finished the album. Once the album was finished, we were looking for label opportunities, and we talked to a lot of different people, and we were looking for a label who kind of like embraced the idea of trying something different a little bit here and there, trying something new, in order to see if we can maybe attract new listeners to the band, like especially younger audience to the band, because we feel like the idea of thrash metal and everything, that the way we spend our last 15 years and everything we've learned, that's so cool, and we want to keep that going, and also share it with the next generation of metal fans. So we were looking for a label who understood that, and AFM was really cool with that, yeah, to help us.
You have some great retail packages for Sound and Fury. You have a limited steel box set. You have two different color vinyls, two different color cassettes. Is this something that you're hands on with when coming up with this, or is that something that the label gives you suggestions and you pick and choose?
It's we're talking about it, like before we sign something, we make sure that the label wants to do some cool stuff, some vinyl stuff, because we love vinyls. I don't own too much because they're expensive as hell, and once you start, you never stop. But it's just beautiful. If you really like an album, you're able to get a vinyl. That's so cool. Same with a tape. A tape is a cool thing still. Some people, I have a tape thing in my car, so I can actually I got a Metallica Kill 'Em All era live cassette on tape. That's so cool. Um, yeah, that's just a little nice to have, to make having the music in your hands and having the whole thing in your hands not disappear, because everybody's so focused on playlists and Spotify and all that stuff. But it's always a completely different thing if you listen an album front to back, because the people who created that album probably had some thoughts and some ideas behind the whole thing and the storytelling of the whole album.
You're right about buying vinyl and not being able to stop. I've got over 700.
Wow, holy shit, crazy.
It's a bad habit. Uh,
That's nice.
eventually, they're going to get too expensive for me to even continue. But I noticed there's a stress cube in your steel box. Is that for the fans that can't handle the new sound?
Maybe they need it for the first try or second try of the album, but I think after the third, they're gonna be like, throw this away and start moshing and headbanging.
Absolutely. You guys are going to be heading out on an extensive tour beginning in February, 3 to 4 months through Germany, Belgium, Austria. You got a run of festivals towards the end there. How many new songs are you planning to play in the set?
We always try to keep up, like to change the set list here and there. So we're starting off with like our headliner tour, release tour. Of course, we play a lot of new songs there too. But the set list always develops by time. The more gigs you play, the more you spice things up. So trying to play, as many songs as possible, and like change up things here and there. That's the goal, yeah. And we're coming. The cool thing is we're coming to the UK in April. That's not announced yet, and we're working on US tour dates for September, I think. Trying to make that happen to come back to the US too.
So, when were you last in the US?
2017, 2018.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you prefer playing the festivals where you have the opportunity to reach new listeners, or do you like the clubs where it's really intimate with your fans, or is it 50-50?
I mean, it's 50-50, it's always, I like the idea of playing in front of strangers. It's always cool to be able to see if, if you have like people back there who are really like looking serious and you feel like, oh, they're not in the mood for something like I'm gonna do here probably. And after a while, after 5 songs, you see them start smiling and start a little bit like, shaking their heads. It's always like, all right, I got you. This kind of cool thing when you play festivals. But club shows, it's louder, it's hotter, it's more intense. That's where the real, that's where the real deal happens. Yeah.
Do you have any other music projects you work on besides Dust Bolt?
Oh yeah, too many, and I should start releasing stuff. Yeah, Nico and me, our drummer and me, we play in a punk rock band, and a punk band is really funny. And I also recorded and produced a lot of solo stuff actually, which is more like, a little bit blues rocky stuff that I do by myself. But I didn't release it yet because I wanted to put Dust Bolt first, priorities. And but after that album is released, I'm gonna drop a lot of music actually in the future. Yeah, there's gonna come a lot of cool things. Yeah.
If you release it under your name, Lenny Bruce, do you think there might be a marketing issue there? Because over here in America, we had a famous
I
comedian
know.
called
I
Lenny
know.
Bruce.
I
And
know. That's why I put a junior on there to make sure I not do communist way, because I love his stuff. I read his books and I love him. It's really cool. It was the first time we toured America, I think. Because my last name is Breuß, which is like a really like German, not good sounding name, but it's nearly written like Bruce. Like one of the guys came up to me, he's like, "Who's Lenny Bruce?" I was like, "Oh, I guess that's me." And he was like, "That's a cool name, dude. You should take that." I was like, "Okay." Then he told me about Lenny Bruce, the comedian, and I read his books, and I was like, "Oh, cool. I kind of can relate to that. It's cool."
so before I let you go, what inspired the name Dust Bolt?
Uh, 4 young kids, smoking a too big joint, 14 years old, full moon, and we desperately needed a band name. Honestly, it was like that. Somebody said Dust Bowl, and suddenly everyone was like, all right, okay. And we just took it, and nobody had like no thought, no meaning. It was just like randomly, but we, like sticking to it was for us always a kind of like remembering that moment together, having like one of your first joints in the full moon, that was being young kids, that was really funny.
Well, Lenny, those are all the questions I have for you today. The new Dust Bolt album, Sound and Fury, excuse me, comes out on February 23rd through AFM Records. Fantastic album. I wish you the best of luck with everything, and thanks for talking to KNAC.com today.
Thank you very much for having me.